So on our last episode, we just finished with a test day. We're all excited about the Evora, and we are off to Silverstone for our first race as a proper team now with our car in GT Cup. And I thought personally, great weekend. Students loved it. The car really got dialed in to a point where Jay was starting to find his feet with it. You know, we've thrown him in the deep end. He's never driven it before, really. And he's into a race weekend. A quick test day on the Friday. 4 sessions, I think we might have got, maybe even, can't remember if it was 4 30-minute sessions or 3 40-minute sessions. Either way, it was not a long time on the Friday. The car, I thought, as we started to dial it in across that Friday, really ran well. Surprised us with lap times, actually. We knew it was, if dialed in, this car had the potential with the engine and the aero, and dialed in with a good set. We knew this car had potential, and we'll talk about eventually what we're going to do for next year, hopefully, to make it a little bit quicker. But it's there and thereabouts almost with, as we know is in our GTO class, a de-restricted Lamborghini modern day 2022-23 GT3 car. And we're not a million miles away.
No.
So we were all pleasantly surprised with that weekend.
That's it. And all credit, like you say, all credit to Jay, because he jumped in that car. He hadn't really, he did a bit of testing in it the year before for us, before the incident. And then we've put him back in it, a freshly rebuilt car, all the setting, everything had to be set up again, didn't it? And, it's got to be hard as a driver when you want to push, you want to go faster, any driver wants to be the quickest. Don't they? That's the whole reason they're out there. So it's got to be hard on the same score, trying to balance that with, we were still dialing the car in, there were still the odd tiny teething problems, we were tweaking things, and yet we were still up there on great times, weren't we?
Of course. During that weekend, which I thought worked really well, especially us three as a team there, with students with us, Wayne's thinking about, and we'll come on to it, but again, his front bumper and the cooling of the brakes, and is everything working nice aero-wise, whilst also trying to keep the students on board with the tyres, getting them cleaned, getting them back on the tyre warmers, making sure everything's ready for each session. You're concentrating on the spanner in the mechanical side, and at the same time, because the car had done a lot the year before, and it had only actually been mapped on an engine dyno, then put in the car, I'm there trying to follow all through the data of making sure things like, is the traction control settings correct for the driver? Is he liking where number 1, 2 and 3 are working? What's the actual fueling like on this car in ignition? Are we getting knock? Have we got any fueling issues? So I'm trying to map it best I can on and off the car, and using some very clever MATLAB script actually as well that we won't talk about. But there's other parts, but we're monitoring and tweaking fueling just to make sure. So there's all these different roles going on whilst trying to help the students as well and dial the car in. And I thought we worked really well that weekend as a team.
Yeah, I think it's always been the case with us though. We're all obviously very passionate about what we do, but I think one of the things we all do very well is we all sort of stay in our lanes as well. So when it comes to working on things, we all have our own interests, we all have our own expertise. I know Ed loves tyre licking as much as I do, but we all have our own areas that we float on and we're quite confident and overseeing. And the fact we have those, and as a team we close the loop on everything, it means that actually the task of doing your day job as an engineer and keeping the students on board and making sure they're doing things, it actually all works really smoothly. But that ultimately comes down to the way that we all work together. We take that to a race weekend, and I really like the way that we work as a team because we have a good time whilst keeping things on track, keeping things serious when they need to be, but really giving that good feel of a family environment where people are welcome and they feel like they can come and relax,
of course,
get involved, have a laugh with you on a level where you're not really... I always say this, I don't like the term student. I think you work more like colleagues in with the students. You bring them in and they're working on your level rather than you almost dictating down. I think that's a really nice thing.
And it's also really nice, like you say, with the students, but I also like that the public have access to the pits, and it's nice that we welcome people of, everybody comes down to the pits. They really seem to gravitate towards us. It's nice that you get parents bringing in their sons and daughters who will want to be future engineers. That's fantastic. In fact, so many people come towards us or find out about us. We had a guy come, and we ended up as YouTube stars on his channel at one point, didn't we? Which was really, really good for him to do a video, of course, about the Lotus Evora GTE from Le Mans and where it now is. And so that was a nice way to meet other people. And then something grew from it onto another channel, another YouTube channel.
Yeah. So he effectively off the back of, I think it was Ed who spoke to him originally.
I saw his original video and on before we got the car, and then messaged him and said, "Hey, do you want a bit more of an update on it?"
Yeah, do you know where this is now, kind of thing?
Yeah. And he replied, and then I put him in touch with our people. And they set up him coming along to Silverstone.
Well, it's a great weekend and a family event for people. So anybody out there, look for the GT Cup calendar in 2024. Please come and say hello. We'll always say hello to everybody. So going back to that, so quite a good weekend. I remember we did have a few issues with the exhaust blowing off, and we chased that for a while. But it was never something major that was ruining our weekend. It was getting annoying, and there's some good footage of Ed jumping in the back of the car mid-race.
That's what you have to do sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we came away from Silverstone with 4 trophies, 2 thirds and 2 second places. So for this car, that's been built quite quickly, and 1 shakedown, 1 test day at Donington and into a race weekend. We were quietly confident of what this car can do. So from there, came back with a bit of a list and let's fix the exhaust and the other, again, nothing major, oil change, gearbox oil changes, etc. Typical new setup on the car. And straight off to Donington. Because Silverstone came so quick, I feel Jay really found his feet at Donington and started really pushing the car, giving some good feedback about the car, me dialing in the car on the dampers and things with him from his feedback, and he started knowing where the limit of the car is and what it will and won't do. So much so, we had a great test day and ended up with a pole position at Donington. And again, against modern-day GT3 cars, we did really, really well, and we're very happy with a pole position with that car. Thought it was a great weekend.
Not only was it a great weekend, the students were fantastic. Like as they were at every race, I've got to say.
Always
but
are,
of course, the big issue we had at Donington, which proves that those that teach can, gearbox. You'd completely forgotten about the gearbox.
Oh, I'd completely see. We did it that fast. That was great. And then with the new box, we put it on pole. So and that weekend, which was a real shame. For those of you who don't know, with the GT Cup, the endurance race, you have to have a mandatory pit stop. Now, you can have a second driver, and at that point, you can swap to your driver, and your second driver can be a professional. So some of the people who race with us do use professional drivers, help for driver coaching, and help them develop their own skills. So some of them do that. We were winning the race. We were probably on to win that race quite easy, even with the pro driver getting in the car that was against us in the Lamborghini, who we knew was very, very quick compared to our car and driver. And at the worst possible time, we had a safety car. And it eroded our massive lead we'd already gained. And I think, if I remember, and guys jump in and jog my memory, was it the last lap, second to last lap? He clawed it back and passed us. And unfortunately, we finished second, which still... we're almost there for the first win with our new built Evora, and we thought, great, here we go, we're going to get a win. With still a slightly underpowered car and still not at the spec of modern GT3 cars.
And a fighting drive from Jay to do as well as he did on that.
And that's motorsport, though. I think we were still... It's almost one of those we would be happy to finish second with this car against that car, and suddenly it goes to... we're going to win, and now it's catching us. We're all annoyed. We're now not going to get a win, where 20 minutes earlier we're happy if we'd have finished second. And then, but the disappointment, and we soon got over that. I thought, well, actually, wow, for that car to be doing that. We're really happy with all the development. We knew your aero, the engine development, the new electronics, all the mechanical issues we'd had before in previous years, all came together. That car, it just needs a few more bits for next year, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be a race-winning car. Yeah. So with Donington, unfortunately, we had another great weekend. I think we then 3 trophies from the 4 races, but unfortunately in the 4th race, we had an arm failure, one of the wishbones. But again, we all jump on the car, including the students. This car's coming red hot with a broken wishbone, and we decide to put an arm on it, send it out. We get it out for the almost the second half of the pit stop race, just to get more mileage on the car, really. And at that point, our belt failed for our supercharger and we lost all power, so we called it at that point. But actually, what was really nice, it gave a bit more time then for the students to finish off the competition you brought out from Silverstone.
Yeah.
The tyre licking competition 2023.
Yes, so tyre licking, since when I started at the company, I've always enjoyed tyre licking. It's the most therapeutic activity.
I think we should just say, just jumping in 1 second, for anybody who's just getting into motorsport, not sure, it isn't actually licking a tyre. This is heating the tyre up and taking off the warm part, or when you've got pickup on the tyre, you heat the tyre and you're scraping off.
Yeah,
that's tyre licking. So
yeah.
Wayne's not licking tyres at race weekend.
No. And it's almost one of those, it's an activity that could be seen as, some teams do it, some teams don't do it, but I think it's a real good leveller for people, and I've always thought that from the beginning. You can be the most confident engineer, but you might just not be able to make a tyre round. And that's really nice, and it's a bit humbling sometimes, but I think as an activity, it gets everybody involved. It's a low-level thing that can't go too wrong as long as we keep an eye on it, and everybody can have a go at it, because ultimately over a weekend, you need to clean those tyres up to get them optimal and get them out ready for the race. And so what I wanted to do was give us something that we could hold centrally, gives the students with us an opportunity. And again, it's such a light-hearted task, provided we've got the time to get the students to have a go at licking a tyre. And we started this once we were back with our car, we had our tyres, we could go through this, and essentially we would time the students, put the names on. We all had a go as well. I don't think you've had a go yet, actually, so that's to be determined.
I don't think I was invited.
But you don't need an invitation. You're always welcome to show that you can't beat me.
I was too busy.
Too important, yeah.
Too important, that was it.
Yeah. We've got a spare tyre over there.
Yeah, well, that can be on the next episode. But that will do the best on YouTube.
Can I just
actually,
write a number on
it? Soothing tyre licking.
I'll put it on the ways.
So basically, it was something that I thought would be good, exciting, doesn't take up too much time, and obviously it gives us something to all have a bit of a laugh over in the night times, which is a good story from Silverstone, actually, because obviously the Mosler and the Lotus run different size tyres, different size front and rear tyres. So we'd all had a go. We had clearly who was the fastest and who was the slowest.
That's not fair. It's my first time.
Yeah. Really that was sort of just to get the students in and say, look, we've had a go. Have a go against us. Our times obviously don't count because I can't take the prize home. But it's interesting just to see how competitive they got.
I liked your confidence there, though. I can't take the prize home, but I don't think you're actually the top of the leaderboard, are you?
Oh, no, I still am.
Oh, yeah.
I still am, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay, right.
Sorry, but I am.
And how far ahead of me are you?
Oh, far enough. What's that Vin Diesel quote?
Doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile.
Yeah. Okay. So, but
half a second,
if you say so. So, what actually really happened?
Might need a lick off.
You might need to have a look at the times and see that he's completely lying.
Love it.
The beauty of it was, though, we all had a go at that first race round, and as I say, the students, we hadn't necessarily met any of them in person before, so that's one of the beauties of the race weekends is they've seen us, they've heard us, but we now get to see them and interact with them. Yeah. And that group of students took it so seriously, didn't they? We had, obviously, the front tyre set, test times, get the tyres licked, that's fine. We had the rear tyres, but then there was a rogue tyre in there. And one of the students obviously contested one of the other students' times because the sizes weren't right.
Oh, okay.
So what this actually turned into was a really good academic exercise of working out surface area percentages.
Okay,
and the interesting thing was that the student in question calculated what the time should have been for the let's call it the qualifying time, so the accurate time. So the student that he'd contested licked the tyre, didn't he? Was within 3 seconds or so of the time that had been calculated, and within the percentage of the time based off his own tyre that he'd done already. So all of that fuss and all of that activity, which actually made for a really good environment and a really exciting atmosphere around it.
It was a brilliant atmosphere that night,
It brought it all together to show, obviously.
And so we have winners who'll be announced.
We do, yes.
Us, okay?
So that was the first week of it, and again, we did the same at Donington, and then we managed to do the same at Snet as well, which we'll get into. But ultimately now we do have a front and rear tyre licking champion 2023. And now, obviously, that was the first time round, so we'll look to improve it again next year. Obviously, we'll have more students because we'll have a full season
of racing
to go at it as well. So I'm really happy, and I think it made for a nice out-of-hours activity to give people something to do and have a bit of a laugh.
It was a great idea, and it worked really well.
So that kind of leaves us, we were leaving Donington with their broken belt. So that's where we'll leave it for this episode, and then for our final episode, we're going to talk about the final race of the year, and then hopefully excite a few people with our developments that are going to lead into 2024.